Are you the type of person to speak out against the injustices in the institution that you're a part of? Or are you the type to remain silent? Well, today on the show, we are talking about both those sides. We're wrestling with all angles when it comes to being a whistleblower, a truth teller in these uncomfortable and toxic situations. We're talking about leaders that aren't great and churches and religious organizations that are nowhere near where they need to be in honoring Jesus. But what do we do if we are in those organizations, in those places, interacting with those leaders, and we see the red flags? Well, in this episode, we're going to be dealing with the nuances of grace and accountability and learning how much wisdom plays a role in trying to figure out what or when or how or if we should say anything. Today on the show is Amy Fritz. Amy is a podcaster. She hosts the Untangled Faith podcast, which is a podcast for Christians to process church hurts, spiritual abuse, and power dynamics within faith communities. She also writes extensively at the Untangled Faith Substack at untangledfaith.substack.com, and just in general has so much great stuff to say about this topic because she has wrestled with them firsthand and has wrestled with whether or not to talk to journalists to expose some of the issues plaguing these different church contexts. So, join me right after this. I'm Jake Doberenz, and this is Christianity Without Compromise, a podcast for Christians who love Jesus but are tired of culture war faith. Now, let's get to rebuilding a faith that actually looks like Jesus. Amy Fritz, it is so good to have you on the show. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Thanks, Jake. I've been looking forward to this too. I've had it on my calendar. You've been like in my social media feed for a while, so I'm really fun. This is fun that our Venn diagram overlaps, so it's fun to connect here on your podcast.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
And because I've gotten to chat with you virtually before, in the written medium of social media and also, through the modern technology, I am truly excited for this conversation because you're a fascinating person with good stuff to say and a good energy. You got that. You know how to podcast, right? So you can help us have a good time today too. We're gonna have some information, but we're probably gonna laugh and have some fun and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, we can laugh and be serious. All the things.
Absolutely.
We contain multitudes. So here we
we contain multitudes. So
we sure do.
So seamless segue here, Amy. You contain multitudes, and
I do.
That many years ago, the young Amy that you were once upon a time won a trophy, I believe, at a Christian high school for being so good, for being either the perfect Christian or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that moment and then take us on a journey to the Amy that started redefining maybe of what the church considered safe and good to kind of where you've ended up today? Take us on that wild journey.
It has been a journey. I have been working on a memoir over the last year, and I had a friend tell me, hey, early on in your writing, you need to tell them things that aren't necessarily flattering about yourself so that they understand you're not just trying to paint this perfect picture. This would be a story I share about how proud I was of earning a trophy for being good. I went to this small Christian school all the way first grade through 12th grade. There was one other person in my grade, my specific grade. That's how small it was. And every year they gave out 2 big awards. The big one was Christian character. And the other kind of runner-up one was school spirit and citizenship. So in my heart, I was going for the Christian character award. And I did. I got it several times. Jake, I won the award.
Nice.
And it's embarrassing to say. I love Jesus, but also there was this thing in me that was like, if I can be the best at being good, why not? Why not
be? That's relatable.
Be real good. why did we give trophies out for being good? I think the intent is good, but now I look back and cringe. I think we all, if we grow and learn in life, there's going to be things we look back on and cringe. And so while I have empathy for senior year high school Amy and
Mm-hmm.
younger, I also think, oh dear child. We have
Yeah.
so much to learn. Yeah, I was a people pleaser. Like this was, if you
Mm-hmm.
do Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 2. I want to be loved. I want to tell me what the rules are and I will follow them because I want you to like really find me helpful and like the best person at following the instructions. I've a strong one wing as well. So I just was like, you know what? Part of being a good Christian is following the rules. And
Mm-hmm.
that also meant like if they told me to do it, it was the right thing to do. And if you were the boss of the Christian area, the
Mm-hmm.
teacher, the youth pastor, the pastor, I will do what you say and I will defend you because of
Mm-hmm.
course they are God's, chosen ones and part of I just understood part of being a good Christian was, you know, giving the benefit of the doubt always. Always to you know, the people at the top. And that served me for a while. I'd earned my trophies. I did get that Christian Character Award
Yeah.
several years in a row, Jake. And I did also earn the School Spirit and Citizenship Award. I don't know
Oh.
where those trophies are. I left them at my parents' house and I'm sure they're now been thrown out. But, and like, you know what? It served me while it did. And then, life happens like for all of us where something happens where you're like, oh yeah, maybe it wasn't as cut and dry as I thought. And for me, young adulthood was figuring out, oh, being faithful to Jesus isn't just like following the rules the best. And also,
Mm.
some of those people that you admired aren't perfect. And sort of, I spent my young adult life kind of untangling that legalism that I grew up in. Because, like, the school I went to was super legalistic. I'd been introduced to the world of Bill Gothard. Like that wasn't really our life, but like I was adjacent to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then just sort of processing like wait a minute. Wait a minute. Like that guy, what does he know? And is that actually in the Bible? Like that sort of thing. And as I was thinking through this, Jake, I was thinking, yeah, that was a important part of my discipleship journey and making my faith my own. But and it there's some growing pains and discomfort in that, but when it's Bill Gothard that you're kind of questioning, it's really different than when you have to process if it's somebody in your own life that maybe isn't perfect. And
Mm.
maybe leaders in your own life could possibly be saying or doing things that are not harmful. And like, so having to process something up close was a lot harder for this Enneagram 2 who found her value in the church of being the person that always supported the institution, deferred to always, if there was anybody that had any questions, of course, they misunderstood.
Mm.
There must be some misunderstanding if you think something's wrong with the pastor or with the Christian school principal or the Christian organization. You must either not fit for some reason or there's some misunderstanding. And that journey of kind of figuring out that was not the right frame, that was not correct, that's sort of part of my journey from, trophy winning, support the institution and the people at all costs to, oh, what do I do now when, Mr. Smith was harmful? And I
Mm-hmm.
always looked up to Mr. Smith and I don't know how to square that. And
Oh yeah.
can I be a faithful Christ follower and say, Mr. Smith was wrong and harmed me? So does that make sense, Jake? You probably
It
didn't earn any
does.
trophies from growing when you grew up. I'm sorry about that you missed out on that.
I went to public school, so they were not going to give me the Christian Character Award for sure.
Yes.
Um, I did win, most likely to win a Nobel Prize though, and I'm still working on that one. I'm
Okay.
still working on that. I I don't know how I'm going to win that, but I'm still working on on winning
You
that
have
Nobel
time.
Prize.
There is
So I
time.
do, right? I got
There's
time.
time for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Amy, thank you for sharing that journey, and you teed up the topic today because that's what I want to talk about. I want to be honest about this awkwardness, this
Yeah.
uncomfortability that grows in us when we realize, oh, the people in charge are not infallible. In fact, some of them are very fallible. They
Yeah.
very much have problems,
Yeah.
bad views or bad behaviors. We're talking about these institutions crop up, and we start to realize, oh, that's an
Yeah.
engine of a lot of harm.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things we like to do on the show is a little bit start off with just sort of exploring how do we get here? Why?
Hmm.
Why is
Yeah.
there such this sense of protect the Christian institution, the church or the religious organization?
Yeah.
Exposing is dangerous. It's of the devil.
Yeah.
It's what the outsiders want to do. They want to come in here and mess it all up, or the devil or
Yeah.
something. Devil
Yes.
made me do it, kind of thing.
Yes.
Where do you think these ideas come from?
I have been thinking about that more since about 2016-ish.
Mm.
That was a question that I needed to start thinking about. And it was because of a situation at the church we were at the time, we found out the pastor had plagiarized virtually every word of every sermon that he had
Oh wow.
preached. And I was like trying to figure out, well, we've gotten rid of him. He was not healthy. And I still sort of felt like something was not quite right. Like, how did we
Mm.
get there? How did we let this go for so long when he clearly was unhealthy? This was not like, it wasn't like all of a sudden we were shocked that, like, I mean, I had feelings like something's off with this guy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly other people had caught on to that and they were just dismissed it. And then I carried that into like the situation with my husband's workplace, where realizing that, this place was not what we thought it was. It was harmful to people. This place that I had supported and like advertised for and, and said is so great
Mm-hmm.
was not. And that was hard. And so I did go down this rabbit hole of like, how did we get here? And who I found? Dr. Langberg. Dr. Diane Langberg had this video called Narcissism and the System It Breeds. And I found it on YouTube and I took notes. I opened up a Google Doc and I took notes
Nice.
watching a YouTube video. And so what I have to say in the answer to your question comes from listening to her. And she talked about how our systems, we can think we are so specially set apart and needed by God to accomplish his will that we feel like we need to defend the person that's so specially anointed or the place, because how else will God do the thing that he needs to do? We are so necessary to that. Now, would we want to say that in those words? Probably not. But in reality, so many of our churches kind of think like that. Have you ever been somewhere they're like, we're so uniquely positioned to do this? It's,
Sure.
and you think, well, yeah, but like, is it actually, does God really not able to do what he needs to do unless, we do the new capital campaign to raise $1 million?
Oh
I'm not
goodness.
sure. I'm not sure if
Right.
that's the case. And so I think people conflate their position in like promoting the gospel or like that institution or that person, and that if you get in the way by saying something that detracts from it, that somebody won't be saved. And I think, somebody that needs Jesus won't hear the gospel. Where that came from initially, I don't know, but I think that is very prevalent in our how we talk about things and what I hear from people saying, but what about all the fruit? What about all the good? And we just need to suck it up and be quiet and hope God works it out.
Yeah. Ooh.
I said a lot
There's
of things there.
no, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work on kind of theology of efficiency. How
Yeah.
the modern world is so obsessed with efficiency, and the institutions
Yes.
come in there, right? It's like, well, this institution is the most efficient way to do X, Y, Z. Kind of like what you mentioned. Got to have this capital campaign because we're gonna. It's the only way to do this. This is the God-sanctioned way because of
I
some
think we
random
all learned
sign.
this from Willow Creek. I mean, we were like, Willow
Oh
Creek
no,
taught
for
us the
sure.
way to do this. And what they did was
It's
give the
interesting.
elder board business books to read. We want you to
Hmm.
read Jim Collins' Good to Great
Yeah.
and How the Mighty Fall And then that's going to help us figure out, and so we become more discipled by that, like efficiency building mindset than
Uh-huh.
by Jesus.
Well, yeah, exactly. Just ripping the corporate game plan and putting that into
Get
the
the right person
church.
on the right seat on the bus is become,
Ah,
the thing we're doing more than,
of course.
reading the Beatitudes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we talk about that a lot on this show because there's so many different facets of that church's business model. Not healthy, fun fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't create good things. We can, as Christians, we can use the wisdom of the world, but we also got to be careful who's influencing who in this situation.
Yeah. I think there's
So that's
nuance
so
to it,
important.
like there is,
Yes.
but anytime we say I have the system figured out, then we're in trouble. We're in trouble when we fail to recognize the complexity of all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to talk a little bit about that nuance next, I think, because um, you also hear this kind of line of thinking, well, nobody's perfect. We're all sinners. And that's used a lot to excuse
Yeah.
all sorts of things. And
Yeah.
just to keep this episode evergreen, probably recently, a
Yeah.
Christian leader
Yeah.
did a big sin and it came out and something was bad.
Isn't
I
that
can,
wild that this
it's
will be
really
evergreen?
terrible. I know.
Unfortunately, I wish it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah.
You're right. We do get a lot of the like everyone's sins.
Uh-huh.
Look at David, a man after God's own heart. Don't judge. And I think this often comes from this place of wanting to move on really quickly. It's uncomfortable to well, what do we do then if we acknowledge how bad it is? What does that mean about us personally? What does that mean about them? I think we have a really underdeveloped theology of how to deal with people that disqualify themselves, even for a time. We want to, we just don't, we're used to canceling people, right? And we think, well, are we supposed to cancel Christians and Christian leaders? But there's a difference between like shaming somebody and saying you are disqualified from being like valued in the kingdom of God or as a person. There's a difference between that and saying you need to keep a position of leadership. And so, and I think we just are uncomfortable with that. What do we do between those two things? Because we haven't practiced it very much and it takes time. And we are not people that like to be patient with things, where probably the most healthy thing is to say, great, if they apologized. That's fantastic. Also, we need to put the brakes on a little bit and just say, we don't know for sure what is healthy for you and what is helpful for the institution. Maybe a platform is like giving an alcoholic, having them sit at the bar.
Yeah.
And it's harmful to them and those around them. And you won't know that right away. And so there is a place for people to surround the person that made the terrible decision, love them, and give them good counsel. And there's also, that can also happen while saying, maybe you will or maybe you won't. There's no guarantee that you will be restored to a specific platform. Yeah. And that's not, I think some people think of that as being unkind or judgmental, but I think it is actually the opposite. I think it is one of the kindest things you can do for somebody is to not put them in a position where they can harm themselves and others again. But it's the long haul, and it can't be, the work isn't going to be done with the goal of getting back everything they had before, because for some reason that wasn't healthy. It needs to look different than it looked before. It's just hard for us, I think, to do that long work. We want a quick, like they're out forever or forget it and move on. They're like King David and it's fine. And we need to think through the King David analogy anyways.
We definitely do.
But like, what's the in between of like, how can we love that person and also say what was true? Like this was really bad and really harmful, and time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, I'm a quick forgiver, which I mean doesn't sound like that would be like a fault, but it is something I have to wrestle with. I want to forgive and move on, but that's not always the. Well, we can forgive, but there's also a consequence to our actions, and I love what you said about
it doesn't. They're not like mutually exclusive,
That's
right?
right.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying here. That's that nuance, that balance we got to do between grace and justice, and yeah,
And I
there's no
think
written. Yeah, go
it's
for it.
personal for us too, especially when
Mm-hmm.
it's somebody we look up to, or if they have work that like impacted our lives,
Mm-hmm.
or that
Mm-hmm.
we have, if they've done work that we built our work off of. I think about one of the first books that I read that was so helpful to me is The Way of the Dragon or The Way of the Lamb by Jamin Goggin and Kyle Strobel. I mean, this book came out before everybody was talking about all of this, and they were kind of talking about some of the issues they saw in the church, and they went and visited different heroes of the faith to kind of talk through with them like how they followed Jesus that looked different than like the Willow Creekification of the church. And they talked to Eugene Peterson and Dallas Willard, and but they also talked to Jean Vanier. I don't remember how to pronounce his name, and all this published in there. And after they publish it, even after they have they've had a conference, I think they're coming off a conference, they find out the news breaks that this guy that they had in a chapter on in their book had
Mm-hmm.
abused, was a serial abuser, and having to process that when you build some of your foundation on someone else's work, it feels very personal to process what to do with them when you find out that they weren't who you thought they are, and what does it mean for your own faith. That's hard. It's
Oh
really
yeah,
hard to say
it
what was
is.
true and what wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
Yeah, I I mean, it's like we mentioned, it's not evergreen, unfortunately. It's like every year there's more and more books on my shelf. I'm like, do I need to keep that author around? I don't know.
Yeah, have you heard Dr. McKnight say, even in their a church called Tove,
Mm-hmm.
he listed somebody that he thought was a good example and later on turned out to be a harmful person. And he's like,
Oh,
I'm less
yeah.
and less likely to list somebody's name as an example of goodness.
Mm-hmm.
He's more reticent, and that makes sense to me.
That is, yeah. It's I sometimes I think it's funny, people in like Twitter or threads or whatever, their bio will say like, the opinions are my own, not my employers. Or I've even seen some people say like,
Yeah.
I am only agreeing with like the select things, whatever, however they say it. Like,
If
it's
I'm
like, yeah,
following somebody, it doesn't mean that I endorse
right.
everything
Following
that
does
they
not equal
say.
endorse. Yeah,
Yeah.
retweeting doesn't equal endorse. Whatever it is, like, yeah,
My tweets are done by my
uh,
team. How about that? I didn't even,
ooh,
if you don't like
beautiful.
them, somebody else posted them.
That's great. Yeah. It's like, man, we gotta put up all these flags. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I might rethread something. I don't know what's called on threads. And it's like, I
Yeah.
didn't look into that person's body of work. I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on here. Boy, yeah.
We're never going to get it perfect. Right.
That's
And I
right.
think that just
That's right.
holding that humility of like, there's going to be something later on that I find out that I got wrong, that either I was wrong about or somebody else was wrong about, and I promoted that. And then all we can do
Mm-hmm.
then is respond in that moment with the new information that we have. And hopefully with humility and grace, we say, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Million grace. Yeah.
Easier said than done, for sure.
Way easier said than done, but it's good that we're having this kind of conversations.
Yeah.
So you told me, Amy, that in this season of life, you're someone who says something. That's what I want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
next, like
Yeah.
this calling, and you told me that you just hope others can borrow your courage. So
Yeah.
let's start to think more
Yeah.
positive. Well, as we
I mean, courage is
transition,
good.
right? Let's talk about courage. Let's
Yeah.
talk about this calling of somebody that says something, and kind of what you hope to achieve
Yeah.
with being the whistleblower, with being the
Yeah.
person that says that's wrong that I see happening in XYZ institution.
Yeah. And when it's a faith community
Yeah.
or faith adjacent person or community, it's hard for sure.
Yeah.
In the summer of 2019, right after my husband left his job, I was doing a lot of thinking on my own, in my writing, praying in my journals, thinking about like, God, what do you have me do with this information that we have in this place that we're at? And I felt the weight of it because so many times these things don't just impact you, it impacts other people. Other people's
Mm.
stories are intertwined with yours. You don't, and what you say doesn't just impact your own self, is what I'm saying. And so that was a blessing, I think, that I had sort of the brakes on me that way, to just spend time with God and talk to him about, like, I don't know what you have me to do. That summer, Julie Roys launched her podcast,
Mm.
her very first podcast. She thought it was going to be a live call-in show because she's an old school
Sure.
radio host.
Mm.
Quickly realized that wasn't going to be how it was going to work for her. She was just going to be able to do interviews because with the people in the studio with her, it went longer than she thought it would be. Anyway, she had a member of that used to attend Harvest Bible Chapel and two other guys that had attended there and left and started the Elephant's Debt blog to talk about the situation and how unhealthy it was.
Mm.
They were whistleblowers. And the former church attender that was there, her name is Jessica, she talked about how, she had heard things about when people left from time to time, wasn't really sure what was going on, and just figured, like, it'll work itself out. I have a pretty good experience here at church, but she sort of kept it in the back of her mind. When everything blew up later, she said she thought back to some of those people that had left the church that she knew. And she said, I wish when they left, they had said something. And she said something about the
Mm.
scars that she had come from the people that left and never said why. And that was a moment for me, Jake, where I was like, okay, God, I felt, I don't have very many of these moments, but I felt so heavy on my heart. Like the Holy Spirit was saying, you need to say something at some point. Like he wasn't saying how or when, but I knew that somebody was going to need me too for some reason or another. And I can't say that everyone is called to the same thing or to
Mm-hmm.
speak up the same way, but some people are. Some people are in a position where they have unique access. And Julie said later on, like in her first Restore conference, she talked about the smooth stone that David had, that all of us have some unique smooth stone to throw for the sake of the church. We have unique information
Mm.
and skills and access and knowledge, and how will we use that? And it's hard to be the first one if you feel like you're alone. And I have just felt this conviction that there's been several times in my life where I've had to do something or say something when no one else did. And I had wished somebody was with me. And so there have been several times in my life where I've said, I'll go first.
Mm.
Somebody may need me to go first. So I think that's sort of what I've said about borrowing courage from somebody else. There's just
Yeah.
something about knowing you're not alone, even if it's not the exact same experience, to see what it looks like. You can be a faithful follower of Jesus and say, I love Jesus. I love the local church. I love so many of these Christian organizations and the work that they do. And also, this was wrong. And God's work can continue even while saying, this was wrong and something needs to be done.
Yeah. As a whatever, I am public theologian, if you want to be really
Yeah.
generous,
I
right?
mean, you talk about
Uh,
things that are kind of uncomfortable sometimes too.
I
So,
do. I do. I what I was going to say, and maybe you relate to this, is that I find one of the best compliments I ever receive is when somebody tells me something like, "That's what I was thinking, but I couldn't put into words,"
yeah.
or I'm glad you said something about that because I couldn't frame it that way, or I was
Yeah.
too uncomfortable with saying, sometimes people will like something, but they are not going to post their own thing or whatever for
Yeah.
whatever reason, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I appreciate being able to be the voice for the voiceless, I guess is
Yeah,
a way to
because there are
say that.
sometimes people are in a position for one reason or another that they
Mhm,
cannot say the things that we say. And it's not because they're not courageous, but
mhm,
because there's some sort of confounding circumstance happening that we wouldn't necessarily know offhand. Or like maybe they're working
yes,
on something behind the scenes that we have no idea. And that if they retweeted or rethreaded, or if they said the thing, would sort of get in the way of this other process that's happening.
oh yeah,
So to hear somebody say, thank you, I can't say this right now, but thank you that you did. I don't always take, I never take that as, well, why don't you? I say,
Yeah,
well, you're
yeah,
welcome. I'm glad it was helpful for you to see. Yeah.
yeah. I can think of one situation I've been in a not great work environment where I did feel like I was the only one talking
Yeah.
publicly, and I hoped over time that would encourage other people to come through. It is kind of frustrating, but people have all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
In a job situation, your livelihood might be tied to it, and
What if that's your
churches,
what if it's your health
right?
insurance and
Sure,
you have like
exactly.
a
I get
kid
it.
that needs like this life-saving medicine, and if you don't have that insurance, like there is no way I'm going to say, how dare you not just stand up and risk it
Right.
all. I'm not.
Right. It's not my job to decide should you
Yeah.
risk it all or not. Like,
Yeah. And
you
like
gotta
there's not
make
every
that.
situation we run across that's unhealthy, it warrants a article in the religion news service.
Oh, that is actually a really good point. Thank you for saying
And
that. Yeah.
so your thing's going to be different. The fact that we had interaction with somebody that had influence on the larger evangelical church, it made sense to talk to a journalist and to say, I know if anyone's going to go on the record, they don't want to do it alone. And I
Hmm.
really wanted the journalist to be able to say, I've already got somebody. I've got somebody. So I could say, tell them my name if you're trying to get somebody to say yes, because it's scary.
Mm.
It is very scary. But if you say you like work at a Christian organization or you go to a church and like it's just not healthy, well, leaving and talking honestly about your experience doesn't mean like an article or necessarily a blog post, but it might mean that somebody that came up to you and said, hey, I know that you attended XYZ or you worked at XYZ. Tell me your experience. And then
Yeah.
you have a chance to be honest. And being honest doesn't necessarily mean saying every last thing about your experience,
Right.
but at least not saying something that isn't true. And that's courageous as well, not just saying, everything was great, you know.
The last thing I want from you today is can you just speak to those people right now in the middle of whatever? They're seeing their red flags in the institution they're in the church they're in the pastor they follow or know, whatever. Um, what would you say for people that are in the middle of that and wrestling with, I see it, but what do I do now?
Oh man. I wish there was a one size fits all
Sure, that's
thing.
very fair. That's very fair.
I think one of the best things that happened for me was really sort of not completely a gag order on me, but like somebody attached to me having a legal gag order that was sort of connected to this story
Hmm.
that kept me slowing, like put the brakes on. And so I would say, spend a whole lot of time with Jesus saying, what does this mean? What is the thing that you want me to do, if anything at all? You will never regret thinking through things slowly and praying about it. You may regret just off the cuff doing something and saying
Hmm.
something. You may need to leave some doors open that would be like destroyed if you didn't carefully figure out how to navigate the next steps. And I don't know if that makes sense. You don't want to burn all your bridges. I'm thinking about all the metaphors: doors open, bridges burned. Uh,
Doors
there is
closed
a
as a window
way
or something. I don't know.
to way to be that gives people maybe still in an unhealthy place the freedom to come to you at their when they feel safe. So if you can be a person in the world that leaves doors open and is understanding to people that are in a place that you had to leave, know that if you, depending on how you are with them and the freedom you offer them and the agency you offer them to follow God's leading for their life, they will feel more or less like they can come to you when something breaks or blows up.
Mm.
Um, so I would say just slow your roll as much as you can. Um, and I think one of the most powerful things really is just to say the truth if somebody asks you a question. And I can't even begin to tell you how much I thank my former self for being gentle with people that I wished I could, at the time I wanted to say, what is wrong with you? Why aren't you asking us why we're no longer at this place?
Mm.
And how can you still be there? Like, that's what I wanted to do. But that would not have accomplished anything good. So being patient with people and with myself and just waiting for confirmation on what the next thing is. And I know that it is really, really frustrating for me to not say, you need to write a blog post or a Substack at year 2, or it may be that you redouble your efforts at becoming the person that is less likely to be the person that hurts others. You're like, I want to learn everything I can about how to be a healthy person, or I'm going to learn everything I can about how to lead an organization so that I don't fall into those steps. And that is a powerful outcome as well.
Thank you, Amy.
Is that
for
a
sharing
cop-out,
all
Jake?
of this.
I hope it's
no,
not.
it's not a cop out.
I hope not.
The theme of the episode is wisdom, guys. Like,
Yeah.
they're complicated situations. I'm glad you admitted there's not a one size fits all, because there isn't.
Yeah.
I like rules.
Yeah.
I relate to the rule following kind of thing. Although I'm more of an Enneagram 8 probably, but anyway.
Yeah.
Just to be honest with you there. But yeah, I want a
When
system
I'm mad,
to follow.
I go to 8.
Yep, right, exactly.
Yes.
But it's not that easy. We need wisdom. We tell the truth, but in wisdom, in love, and like in these kind of things. You brought us back to Jesus right there at the end. That's what we like to do in the show. That's where we're supposed to get back to. And pray about it, sit with it. That's good. That's a good reminder for me personally, because I do have the righteous indignation about things.
And also, here's the other thing I didn't say, is there's probably somebody that was before you in this situation that had to leave, and you maybe wrote them off a long time ago and you've never talked to them. Who else maybe was a few steps ahead of you that you thought, yeah, they don't belong at this place, or they were wrong. And now you can be like, maybe I should circle back with Jake. He used to be in this community and he isn't anymore. And maybe I could just have some conversations with people to get some clarity.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'll say I briefly worked in a church as a college minister and briefly as an associate minister. And you don't know why most people leave. They don't tell you. You have no idea. People just disappear one day, and who knows their stories? I mean, I don't know. So that's good. It's good to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So, Amy, where can you be found on the interwebs? Where are the things you want to point people to? This is the plugs and links part of the show.
This is where I plug myself.
Wrapping up, sadly, at the end here.
I also have a podcast.
Yes.
You can find me at the Untangled Faith podcast, and I think the website is untangledfaithpodcast.com. You can find that. I also have a Substack, Untangled Faith Podcast. Substack.com, whatever. I will.
Sure.
Maybe the show notes will have the right
There'll be a link.
But if you look up Untangled Faith Substack or podcast, you will find my podcast. I share a long multi-part series of our experience with my husband leaving his job, deciding to leave, and working through the process of whether we spoke up about it or not, and then ultimately deciding to, and what happened next. It's a whole journey. I would love for you to listen to that. That's where you can find me.
How long have you been podcasting?
I stopped for a little bit, but I originally started in April of 2021.
Okay. Yeah. Very nice.
And the world was so, there weren't a lot of people in this space. Like my podcast,
100%.
Is probably similar audience in yours for people that have seen some things and been sort of hurt or disillusioned in their faith community. They still love Jesus.
Absolutely. That's who we are.
And they're trying to figure out how to untangle those things from their faith that were never meant to be a part of it while still holding on to Jesus. So, since that time, there's a bunch of podcasts that have popped up, and I'm not mad about it. I'm glad there's lots of resources for people.
Right. Yeah. No competition here for sure.
Yeah.
Love it. And that's that Venn diagram you talked about there. My audience, go check out her podcast. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. So, well, we're at that end point now, but I have one question that everybody gets on the show. This is where we, again, bring it back to Jesus and bring it back to action and practicality. whatever direction you want to take it, here's the question for you, Amy. As we close, leave the audience with just one practical action they can do this week to live out their faith fully for Jesus.
I don't know if this is practical. I think it is.
Okay.
I would say spend some time with Jesus in prayer and saying, what am I getting wrong? What am I missing? Because so many of the missteps that we see in the Christian world or just the world at large comes from a pride and an arrogance of, I have it all figured out. I know all the things. And we forget that there was things we know now that we didn't know before. And there still are things that we're probably getting wrong and we just don't know it yet. Yeah. And so spend some time thinking through, what are my blind spots? What am I missing? What don't I know that maybe I need to know? And that changes, I think, your whole approach to the world too, and how you interact with people that are different than you, to come with an idea and a posture that says, I could be wrong. It changes a lot.
I think that is practical.
Yeah.
Something you can do this week. You can turn off this episode and get to that right now. Boy, that's important. That's a good one for me too. For me to remember. So
thanks.
Well, thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it. I like to encourage people at the end to, number one, share this episode with people. This would be great to share with anybody who you've had these conversations with about untangling faith in institutions and leaders and things of that nature. Maybe anybody in your life that's like, I'm in this situation.
Yeah.
Should I speak out? Should I stay? Should I go? What am I going to do here? Hey, this is a great start to that. And then go check out Amy's podcast as the, I was going to say palate cleanser. That's not really it. As the next step, as the there you go. As the rest of that conversation, of that journey, that'd be really good. We also have great episodes on this show too. I think so. We have episode 35 was with David Rubelid about how church culture can turn leaders into idols. It's very apropos here.
Very applicable.
We had a good one with about religious certainty and being the only one saved with Scott Lloyd. That was episode 44.
Yeah.
And Christy Lynn Wood has come on to talk about the Bill Gothard
she's
cult
great. She's
mindset
so great.
as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So those some other ones that'll be in the show notes that you guys should check out as well.
Yep.
I just wanted to recommend those. But Amy, Fritz, thank you immensely for being on the show today. It was a really fun conversation. And if I had fun, I like to think other people had fun too, and those make the best episodes.
Thank you. Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm certain they had fun. Maybe we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely. This episode of Christianity Without Compromise was hosted by me, Jake Doberenz, and produced by Theophany Media, my podcast production company. If this conversation served you, please rate and review the show and share it with a friend and help others find it. You can also subscribe at jakedoberenz.substack.com to get email updates with new episodes every Tuesday and my often humorous theological reflections on Fridays. And as always, don't just listen, live it. Live out that Christianity without compromise. Thanks for listening.